Happy Halloween, Silver Shamrock.
Welcome back to Rewind of the Living Dead. I am Damon Martin.
And I'm Dr. Patrick Chalice.
And Patrick, tonight we are reviewing a movie that is beloved by me and very close to my heart, Halloween 3, Season of the Witch.
Ooh, Damon, happy Halloween indeed, because Season of the Witch was released in October of 1982, and it starred the likes of Michael Curry as Rafferty, Dan O'Herlihy as Connell Cochran, Stacey Nelkin as Ellie Grimbridge, and of course, the legendary Tom Atkins as Dr. Daniel Chalice. As you mentioned, Damon, written by Tommy Lee Wallace with uncredited rights by Nigel Neal and John Carpenter, and directed by Tommy Lee Wallace. Damon, the Halloween franchise is nothing short of controversial. It's nothing short of divisive. I would say it's yesteryear's Scream franchise. There's just lots of opinions, lots of feelings. There might not be bigger feelings outside of the Rob Zombie remakes than Halloween 3 Season of the Witch.
It's funny because I go to a lot of horror conventions, and I've said it before. I'll say it now. By the way, we are full spoilers. This movie's over 40 years old, so we're not going to hold anything back on this episode. But
yes,
I've always loved Halloween 3, and I think over the years I've fallen more and more in love with it just because it's so wacky and fun and just different. And I think I've made it clear. I think I've said on this show before, I'm a huge Tom Atkins guy. He's like one of my favorite all-time horror actors. So I love this movie. But when you go to like horror conventions, and inevitably there are going to be Halloween people there of some sort, whether we're talking about the original, the remakes, whatever, or sequels, whatever. And I always see a lot of Halloween 3 shirts, and then I do see occasionally like the fuck Halloween 3, Halloween 3 is the worst movie ever. Like those, like there is a small spattering of fans who absolutely despise this movie because it's the one film in the franchise that doesn't involve Michael Myers in any way, shape, or form. Although, technically, Michael Myers does make an appearance in a TV commercial.
He does.
But it's weird because, but it feels like, and Patrick, we've been doing this podcast for 5 years now. Happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary.
During that time, you and I have been really, really, really entrenched in the horror community in every way, shape, and form, from our podcast to our Patreon, patreon.com/Rewind of the Living Dead, cheap plug, to our Instagram, to our Twitter, to our TikToks, to our friends on TikTok, our Horror Talk friends. So we are incredibly entrenched in the horror community. And maybe I mean, it's not like everyone just sits around and debates Halloween 3 all day. But it feels like the narrative on this movie has shifted in recent years, where it feels like more people like this movie than dislike this movie. Like, a lot of people have let go of that animosity that this just isn't a Michael Myers. Because I don't think it was a matter of, like, they didn't like the movie. They're just like, this movie doesn't have Michael Myers, so fuck Halloween 3. But it feels like the narrative has shifted now, where more people like this movie than dislike this movie. Have you experienced that or felt that? Because it feels that way to me.
It does feel like that in my immediate social circles with regards to horror, that everyone I talk to seems to love Season of the Witch. But you got to think about it in pop culture terms, right? Like, Halloween was a big deal blockbuster slasher that basically ushered in the 80s slasher era. And Michael Myers was at the top of the heap. You know what I mean? He was the slasher king of the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s. And so when you put a movie together that doesn't have him, and this is 1982, the best you're getting for social media understanding is reading a newspaper. So you might read a review about Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, or you might not and just go, cool, Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, can't wait, love the first two, can't wait to see what Michael Myers is up to. And then imagine you're Damon Martin, 1982, you sit down in that theater and you're going, that's an interesting intro. Okay, there's something about Halloween there. Okay, there's some guys in suits acting super weird. So when are we getting to Michael Myers? If this is starting to sound familiar, it sure as shit sounds a hell of a lot like Halloween Ends, which is a dirty word around here. Damon gets very upset when we bring that up. And to be honest with you, I'm not a big fan of that movie either. But certainly Halloween Ends had a problem. It was about Corey. this guy who we just met at the top of this movie. We're going, I'm sorry, the culmination of everything that we've been doing for the last almost 50 years, and you're going to give me this guy, Corey, who beats up Michael Myers in a sewer? Who? Who is this guy? Right? Like there was this like sharp left turn with Halloween Ends. I have to imagine back in 1982. Now things are going strong. You got Halloween. At this point, you got a couple of Friday the 13th movies. Um, I have to imagine if you're a hardcore horror fan of the early 1980s, Season of the Witch must have pissed you off because as interesting it is, and as it is, and in retrospect, it is a very interesting movie. At the time, I got to imagine people were just livid. They were like, I did not sit down for this. What is this? You know, the promotion machine nowadays, everybody gets it literally spoon fed to them. If you're not getting a targeted ad on your algorithm, your favorite horror content creators are telling you about it, or you're reading the trades, or you're reading whatever you read, you know everything you need to know about a movie. If you want to know about a movie before it comes out, you can know everything you want to know. That wasn't the case in 82. So I have to imagine that this was a sore spot for the diehard Halloween people for quite some time. But you're right, Damon. As far as I can see it, and I would love our listeners to chime in. Patrons, feel free to chime in early because you guys get this episode early. But feel free and tell us how you feel because I'm pretty sure now this thing has aged incredibly well, and most people are like, "Yeah, I love Season of the Witch."
I I think you're absolutely right in terms of the reaction, and you know, obviously I wasn't around in 1982 to see this movie, so I have no idea what the actual reaction was. Just seeing like the general like reverberation throughout the decades of people who reacted to this movie, because I didn't see this movie for years. Like I weirdly, for whatever reason, because like I do have like some Halloween toys and shit like that, but like everyone's like, oh, you're a huge Halloween fan. Honestly, it's not. It's pretty low on my like franchise list of like my number one franchise is well documented Nightmare on Elm Street. Number two is Scream. And then beyond that, it's kind of like, I love Texas Chainsaw Massacre for a couple of those movies. I love, a couple other franchises. And yeah, Halloween's on that list. And also, just being honest, like Halloween is just readily available. So it's easier to find Halloween shit to buy because it's such a big franchise. But truth be told, I'm not a massive Halloween fan. I like it, and I do like a lot of the sequels, but I'm not like a diehard, dyed-in-the-wool, Halloween fan to the point where like I wear T-shirts that say "fuck Halloween 3." But I get it what you're saying. Like in 1982, you didn't have the mass marketing campaign to this extent. Generally speaking, you would see a trailer on TV, or maybe a trailer leading into another movie. And here's the thing about Halloween 3, what's weird is because I've seen this movie a dozen times. I've never really sat down and watched the trailers. And as I was getting ready to do this podcast, if you listen to the whole podcast, I always play a trailer at the beginning. So I was looking up trailers for this movie. I mean, if you saw a trailer for this movie, you knew there was nothing Michael Myers related. Like they were pretty much telling you there was no Michael Myers. But I get it. And I'm gonna mention this in categories later, so I don't want to spoil this, but I'm just gonna bring it up now. If you know anything about the history of the Halloween franchise, John Carpenter and Deborah Hill, who made the original Halloween, they had no intention of making other Halloweens. It was one movie. That's all they ever intended on doing. Now, when they spent $300,000 and it became at that point the most successful independent film ever, yes, they wanted more. And John Carpenter reluctantly came back and did the script and the music for Halloween 2, directed by somebody else, but was it Rick Rosenthal, I believe, was who directed it. He came back, he's like, I don't want to do this, but I guess you're paying me and it's a paycheck, and sure, I'll do it. And that's where they introduced the mythology of the brother angle of Michael Myers being related to, because he had to find some way to keep the story going, because his intention was Michael Myers was the shape. He's just this mindless, faceless killing machine who just goes out hunting on Halloween night, and Laurie Strode and her friends just happened to be the unlucky people who lived in Haddonfield when it happened. That was it. That was the story. But when they're like, we need more, we want more. And he's like, all right, well, and if you ever listen to John Carpenter, he fucking hates Halloween too. He despises it. He does not like it at all.
What does John Carpenter like is the question.
College basketball and video
College
games.
college basketball and video games is the
Those
answer.
are the two things he loves. But yeah, like he didn't want to do it, but I get it. You get paid a giant paycheck and they're gonna, okay, listen, we all got a price. The $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase said that about WWE in the 80s, so we all got a price. So he did it. And that's where he introduced the whole brother angle. He had to find some way to keep it going. But when it came time for Halloween 3, they're like, oh, well, Halloween 2 is a huge success. Now it's time for Halloween 3. And at that point, John Carpenter is more like, I feel like his attitude, and I'm just quoting, totally misquoting him here, was more or less, fuck this franchise. Like, I'm not doing it again. So he came up with the idea of introducing Halloween 3 as the new version of Halloween, where you would get a Halloween-centered story but without the focus on Michael Myers and Laurie Strode. He wanted to move on from that because he didn't even want to do the sequel. And he's like, now we can introduce an anthology where every film has something to do with Halloween, but it's not just entrenched in this Michael Myers mythology. And of course, it came out and it made some money. I think it made like $14 million at the box office on like a $3 million budget. So it wasn't like it bombed at the box office, but the reaction was just venomous. Like, people were like, fuck this movie. It didn't have Michael Myers. You ruined my childhood. Your favorite phrases of all time. And I think here's the giant point I was trying to get to here. I think if they had never done Halloween 2 and they just did Halloween 2 Season of the Witch and that kicked off the anthology, people would have a much different opinion. But because they did Halloween 2 that continued the Michael Myers story, people just wanted to continue the Michael Myers story. So I think that was the mistake here. It wasn't the idea was bad or the anthology idea was bad or, people just, hated the movie in general. I think it all came down to you did 2 movies in a row, and at that point you started a chain of events. Imagine watching Nightmare on Elm Street 1, Nightmare on Elm Street 2, then you go see a movie called Dream Warriors and it has nothing to do with Freddy Krueger. Or you watch, it's kind of hard to, I know Friday the 13th is a little different franchise because the first one actually doesn't involve Jason Voorhees. Sorry, spoiling that movie from 1980. But like, imagine you get to, part 2, Jason finally comes out, part 3, you get the hockey mask, and part 4. Well, actually it did happen, and it
happened in part 5.
Part 5, they introduced a fake Jason, which people fucking hated that movie.
We were not fans of Roy.
They even had Jason, but it was a fake Jason, and people hated that movie. But I think that was their mistake. If they would have just gone right into the anthology idea for Halloween 2, it would have worked. But because you gave them 2 films of Michael Myers, they only wanted Michael Myers.
Yeah, I won't elaborate further on that because we can keep talking about that in our categories. What I will talk about is tonight's movie, Season of the Witch. And the essential premise, if you have never watched this movie, is kids all over America want silver shamrock masks for Halloween. Dr. Daniel Chalice seeks to uncover a plot by Silver Shamrock owner Connell Cochran. Something is amiss, Damon. Something is wrong. And at the beginning of this movie, we meet this random man who's running from something. We don't know what it is. And eventually he finds his way into a hospital, and eventually his eyeballs are like blasted out by somebody who goes and sets themselves on fire in a car outside. And you're like, holy shit, this is pretty fucking wild. What the hell's going on? Dr. Chalice he's a bit of an amateur sleuth. He's like, I'm going to get to the bottom of this shit, and I'm going to get laid in the process because it's Tom Atkins and he's got to get laid. And what it turns out, what it kind of rolls into is this sort of like mystery movie, like where you're like, well, what is really going on here? And him and this woman Ellie, who was the daughter of the man who was killed, go on this hunt to understand why he died. And what they uncover is, Damon, I'm going to say, as bizarre as it's ever gotten. Maybe it's like one for the ages, the plot that's actually going on with the Silver Shamrock Company. When I was watching it this last time, I've seen it a few times, but when I watched it this last time, I go, boy, that's a fucking bonkers ass plot, Damon. And you're a big fan of this. We can see your Season of the Witch masks in the background. You're a big fan of those.
There.
Help me out, Damon. Explain to me exactly what the hell the Silver Shamrock Company is truly up to. What? I'll ask this question and I'll turn it over to you. Was their whole plan to just turn kids into bugs?
No, no, it was a sacrifice. It
It's a
was a sacrifice.
sacrifice.
Yeah, so this kind of goes back, and I know that you're gonna be like, wow, you're really reaching here, but the best way I can explain it kind of goes back to the True Detective plot of Saturnalia with the old school Halloween where they like did human sacrifice as like a way to appease the gods of
Right.
Halloween, and they talked about that in True Detective where they would like hold human sacrifices in the woods and stuff as a way to honor their weird Halloween gods or whatever, that kind of mystic, like, bayou religion at that time.
Right. Hence season of the witch for us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and for Connell Cochran, he explains when they bring in fucking Stonehenge of all things, uh, that his plot is to basically eliminate, thousands upon thousands of children as like a human sacrifice. And he makes a point when he makes the speech in the movie. He talks about the last time this happened was thousands of years ago when there was a giant sacrifice, and he wants to enact that again. And so he's created a way to basically indoctrinate all the children wanting these really elaborate, nice Halloween masks, and embedded in each one is a microchip that's both electronic and witchcraft, which is an interesting plot point in this movie. And the idea is he's going to wipe out thousands of children in one fell swoop in one night as a giant sacrifice to his witchcraft Stonehenge god. He never gets specific about which Stonehenge witchcraft god he's speaking to, but basically it's a human sacrifice. It's just a human to appease whatever god he is praying to, whatever witchcraft he's praying to. It's just basically like we haven't had the calling, so to speak. We have not called the masses in thousands of years. It needs to be done again. So I'm going to wipe out thousands of children in one night, and that's going to be my way of like paying homage to this witchcraft god of his. So that, yeah, it's not anything more than a human sacrifice.
And it's a weirdly I would say folk horror film. Like
It is.
it really plays like a 1970s English folk horror for the most part.
Yeah.
It's so weird like that. But I was like, but to what end? And I guess when I think about a lot of the folk horror movies that I've watched, and even the ones I truly like, I never really understand what the fuck the cults are up to anyway. Like, yes, they want to sacrifice people, and I get that, but to what end? Like, what do they gain? And it seems that Cochrane and his following of automatons, which that's a whole other plot, I guess we're gonna have to get into, but like they just want this sacrifice, and do they transcend? I still like miss like what they get from the sacrifice, or are we just playing the old school card of we want to sacrifice because we're fucking evil cultists?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the way I took it. Is almost like they're doing what hasn't been done, or I guess technically it's just Connell Cochran because everyone surrounding him are just robots. Which, as you said, we'll talk about the bat shittiness of that at some point. But basically, Connell Cochran, who is this very successful, businessman and creator of Silver Shamrock novelties and eventually these masks, he's just trying to enact the same kind of sacrifice that was done thousands of years ago when whatever sacrifice was done at that point, and now he's just trying to do the same thing again. And it's almost like he's balancing the universe in a way. Like, I don't think it's like I'm going to ascend to heaven or they're going to be I'm going to become a god or anything. I think it's just like this hasn't been done. We haven't had a calling in years. We haven't had a sacrifice of this magnitude in years, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to be the one to enact this sacrifice, and it's going to fix the world, fix our universe, whatever it is. Like, it's going to bring
Right.
everything into balance. Because I'm not trying to piss off the people who actually study witchcraft, but like in witchcraft, everything is about balance, right? It's good and bad. It's good and evil. It's light and dark. That is kind of the tenets from my end, my very rudimentary understanding of witchcraft. Heaven and earth. It's very very everything's in balance, right? And when it comes out of balance, that's when things get fucked up. So I think this was like Connell Cochran's way of saying, like, I'm going to rebalance the universe by making this sacrifice. Now, they could have gotten a lot deeper in that and saying, like, the kids of today are fucked up, or this world is becoming a cesspool, or but
Yeah.
they don't explain it. I don't think you really need to explain it. It's pretty simple. Like, he's going to wipe out thousands of kids in one night with these masks, and the sacrifice is really what I take it to. Is there a point of the sacrifice? Is there really a point of any sacrifice throughout history? Like, we're going to sacrifice this for God. Great. Awesome. Why? I think it's
Did
kind of
nothing
like
anyway.
that. Yeah, I think it's just like that. Like, we're just going to wipe out thousands of kids because it's what my religion told me to do.
Let's talk for a second, Damon, about the man of the hour himself, Tom Atkins. Oh, an absolute legend. And I'm really going to let you go off on a tangent with Tom Atkins. I know he's your guy. You probably met him a few times at this point, if I'm not mistaken. I just want to say, like, I read a lot of technique about screenwriting, and I learn like how, you're supposed to introduce characters in a way that tells you a lot about them. And back in the 1980s, they were like, fuck all that. The first instance you see of Tom Atkins, he is hunched over with a jacket over his head, looking like an absolute doofus as he barrels in to his ex-wife's house to see the kids. I thought to myself, I go, I don't know if I've ever seen a dorkier intro to a leading man in a horror movie than I've seen in Halloween 3 Season of the Witch when Tom Atkins comes in just looking like the biggest dork. And then, mind you, Tom Atkins is a very smooth talker. He's got the cool 1970s look to him and all that stuff. But I just thought to myself, boy, I wouldn't have introed a character like that, but who gives a fuck if you're, on your third Halloween movie, I guess.
So my theory about that intro is that they had to tone down the pure animal sexuality of Tom Atkins. So they had to introduce you to him in a way you're like, oh man, here's this dorky guy with a coat over his head. He's a doctor. Because every other interaction that Tom Atkins has in this movie, somebody wants to fuck him.
It's insanity.
The nurse in the hospital, the coroner girl,
Oh
Ellie.
my God.
I think Mrs. Gutman and the wife of the other toy maker, I think they all wanted to hop into bed with Tom Atkins. So that intro is the only way they could tamp down his animal sexuality in this movie, Patrick.
You know that salesman from San Diego was 100% a swinger. Showing up in the RV, him and the missus come right up to Tom Atkins and Ellie, and they're like, "Yeah, it's going down for sure." That's in the extended cut. I don't think anybody's seen that one, but it's so funny how there was just a time in this country where the ladies' man, the leading man, the starring man was a guy like Tom Atkins, and I'm not putting him down. I'm just saying, like, we have a whole different sense now. Like, our leading men have to be just the most beautiful, charming, interesting guys you've ever seen. Or you can have a guy like Tom Atkins who literally looks like my uncle. Who, I mean, he's an everyman, and there's such an appeal to that. To just go, if this everyman can solve the case, get the girl, fight the monster, beat the bad guys, end the cult. Tom Atkins does all of that and bones down in the same movie.
I mean, if you look back at like the 70s and early 80s of a lot of the male leads, I'm not saying there weren't some good looking dudes out there, but there wasn't quite the same focus on you have to be this like hulking Adonis to be the leading man. I mean, like Charles Bronson led movies. That dude is not attractive. Like he was
Guy
never
looked like a gremlin.
Yeah, and listen. Yes, there were the late great Robert Redford, who was just a fuck machine in his own right.
Oh yeah,
I remember after I got to tell the story. Robert Redford, after he passed away, there was some movie he was going to do where he was supposed to play like a nerdy guy, and he's like, someone told him, he's like, Robert, you can't play this role because you have to be able to like fake that you can't get women. He's like, I don't know what that's like. He's like, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, so you had the Robert Redfords of the world. You had, a young Al Pacino was a very good looking guy. But like there were a lot of late 70s, early 80s actors who were not like they didn't look like Ryan Gosling. They didn't all look like, this just Adonis leading man. And Tom Atkins, and granted, this is horror, this is, lower budget, this is a third sequel, this is a lot of things. No, Tom Atkins didn't have that classic, chiseled good looks and ripped body and all that kind of stuff. But I think that's what also made him so appealing and fun to watch in a movie like this, or even in The Fog, where he gets to bone Jamie Lee Curtis. He was just like, you said it, he's the everyman. And I appreciate he becomes the pimp of horror in the early 80s, where it's just like Tom Atkins fucks. Like this dude must have like a giant schlong, and he is just on his shit. But I love the simplicity of that, because I think one of the problems we face in cinema today is it is all that. Like
Yeah.
it is always the chiseled, good looking, ripped up dude who's got to lead the movie. And if you don't have that, in certain, I mean, obviously not every movie is going to be like that, but in movies of this kind, you got to have that. You got to have this super good looking guy who's chiseled as shit and looks like he spends 9 hours a day in the gym and probably has enough steroids in his system to kill a donkey. Like, you could not put a Tom Atkins in today's movies because people just would be like, I need Ryan Gosling. I need like a super good looking dude. So I appreciate the everymanness, for lack of a better word, of Tom Atkins.
And he gets to cosplay as the world's horniest detective in the most depressing town you could ever find in California. Like they literally just found the worst town. There, people don't know that about California, that the whole middle of it is basically farmland. Like everybody assumes California is Los Angeles and San Francisco. It's like, no, most of it is what you see in Season of the Witch. Like empty, barren, boring, just depressing places. And that's where horny Tom, Detective Tom goes with Allie, who I'm or Ellie, excuse me, who, just moments ago lost her father, and it's like, I'm gonna go to Pound Town with this guy, this doctor that I just met, who basically looks like a mashup of me and Damon right now. And they go on this hunt. Damon, I guess we'll have to divert here. Tell me about the robots. Why are there robots in this movie?
This is just my assumption. I've not done the research. They make a very, very big deal about Connell Cochran being this incredible inventor. He
Sure.
created this, he created that. He's a very incredible inventor. And I guess in a certain way, if you're trying to sacrifice thousands of kids, you're probably going to have a guilty conscience somewhere in your operation. Someone's going to blow the horn and say, hey, my boss is literally trying to wipe out 1 million kids or whatever number it's going to be. So what better way do you demand loyalty than creating your own minions? And Connell Cochran, as we learn in this movie, is a genius who has created, he created this, he created that, he created all these gags, and we learn when they go in the factory and there's like the weird grandma like knitting and it looks very real, and then Dr. Chalice touches it, the head falls off, you realize it's a mechanical, it's a robot as well. Clearly this is like, that was kind of like his life's work to this point, was to creating these robotic subjects who would just worship him and bow to his will. And listen, am I totally making up why? Sure. But my assumption would be, and I guess that, if I put this in like a modern context, wouldn't you think that like if you had a staff of just 100 people and they all knew that the plot was going to be wiping out an entire generation of children, someone along the way probably wouldn't have a guilty conscience. So my guess is like this just guarantees he has total submission from his employees. They're all going to bow and curtsy to him because he's the guy who made them.
It's actually a great theory. I wish it was just somewhere in the movie. It doesn't
Yeah.
seem to be. It doesn't appear to be. And so that, and then it begs the question where you go, well, I guess Cochrane is just a cult of one, truly, because there's no one else around. Like it's just him and the robots. I guess he runs the whole town. There are people in the town, but they don't work for Silver Shamrock. He just has the world's greatest automatons, Damon. When I say they are like literally humans, they bleed, they breathe, they can self-immolate. It's insanity what he's able to do. Like I want to know what the cocaine was like in 1981 when they wrote this thing, because it's so fucking batshit crazy.
They had so much left over. They were able to let Stephen King borrow it when he made Maximum Overdrive. So it was a really nice thing they did here for this movie.
Oh yeah, that was some of the Season of the Witch coke. Yeah, no, it was great, good stuff.
Yeah, Stephen King often talks about how much coke he was on when he directed that movie. Yeah, I appreciate it, and like it is why, and I wonder, and because Tommy Lee Wallace has said openly like he didn't write a lot of this, he reworked a lot of it, but Nigel Neal, who we talked about earlier, who wanted nothing to do with this after it got done,
I
took his
wonder
name
why.
off it. He wrote the majority of this plot. I'm wondering, like, this is once again almost like the idea that the robots are subservient to him and he didn't want have any disloyalty, so that's why he uses robots. That's just me making the plot, and you said it works, so I'm going to go with that. The
I'd say
other,
we go with it.
here's one of my reasons why I think the robot plot also got introduced. Maybe I'm wrong, but at the beginning of the movie, when these things hunt down Ellie's father and they almost kill him, and he gets away and he gets to the hospital, and they go to the hospital, and I mean, that's a pretty gnarly scene where they break his freaking nose bone and kill him and like literally stab his brain to death right there. I think the idea of the robot came along with that scene where the robot goes out in the car, douses itself with gasoline, and sets itself on fire and explodes. And because there's a plot that continues to unravel throughout the movie where Dr. Chalice is calling his friend in the coroner's office saying like, "Hey, what did you find?" And she's like, "We somebody made a mistake. Like there's no bones. It's just like these mechanical parts. It must have been part of the car." And it's not until late in the movie when she discovers like, "Oh, it was actually a robot," and then they show up and kill her as well. My guess was that's like a really cool twist. Like he gets in the car,
Right.
sets himself on, which by the way, that is cool. You see the fucking guy set
A
something and
great
it
scene.
explodes. And I think that to me was the idea because by the time you get to the town and you see this weird, you really don't until Dr. Chalice fights the one robot and you see him pull his hand down, he's got all the yellow goo of like oil or whatever on his hand. Do you totally know it's a robot? I think that was the reason why, because you got to have that underlying plot of Dr. Chalice calling back to the coroner to say, what did you find? Like what was going on with this guy? Did he just douse himself in gasoline? Like he's a true believer. No, he wasn't a true believer. He was just following Cochrane's orders. He was a fucking robot. So I think that's where it stemmed from. And by the way, that is a cool twist, that you can't find a body.
Yeah.
There's no bones. You're like, what is going on? Like this guy literally murdered someone, jumped in a car, set himself on fire, and we can't find proof a guy existed here. Why? Because he didn't.
It's such an insane idea that really fucking works for this movie. Like it's almost too sophisticated for 1982. It's like you did that by accident. There's no way you meant to do that. And I think the die-hard Season of the Witch people like yourself are just like, no, it was that good. Like, of course, it makes a total sense. And you're right. It comes in at the perfect time because this coroner she was too busy gooning it to photos of Dr. Chalice to see what was going on. She gets overwhelmed by the robots and it's all too late. But you realize like, yeah, these robots, they cover their tracks perfectly. When you found the grandma in the museum the little, heritage part of the factory, you realize like this family has dealt in this for centuries, I guess, generations, if you will. And it's like, it weirdly fucking works. That's what I think the long-term appeal of Season of the Witch is all about. It is a goofy 80s movie. Let's be real. But like all those weird pieces aside from the horniness of this movie, which is just a 1980s thing, aside from that, all the other weird pieces of this puzzle actually fit together really well and come up with a movie that I would compare to something like Black Mirror. Honestly, it's like a precursor to that. It's such a fucking odd idea. But imagine right now if you said to someone over Black Mirror, let's do a Season of the Witch episode. We are going to tell that story again with Black Mirror and Netflix money. It might be one of the coolest episodes they ever made, genuinely, just because the ideas that are there and presented, even though they're put together in this very odd movie that is part of a franchise that has nothing, zero to do with it at all. And John Carpenter's on the best LSD that he's gotten in the Valley in California. And he goes, this is what we're doing. I fucking hate Michael Myers. We're going to do that instead. John Carpenter, Tommy Lee Wallace. I forget these guys' names. Tommy Lee Wallace. Even Nigel Neal, who was embarrassed of this script. Congratulations to you guys for making something that should not have worked. Not on paper, not on screen, and certainly at the time, not with the fans. The fans at the time revolted for the most part. I'm sure they had their fans. It's something that's so fucking weird in all these different ways and totally works. Like, hey, Damon, even on top of all of that, now let's just play some nostalgia games here. Tell me you didn't go to your local video store And when you would walk around the horror section, young Damon Martin, as young Patrick Garrett did as well, even the cover of the VHS tells you nothing. It's got this weird demon head at the top, and then it's got these kids all stretched out and walking down. You would never know what this movie's about on any level. Yet all of it collates in what I believe, Damon, is one of the best Halloween movies ever. I'm not asking you to rank them tonight, but I'm telling you this is in my top five, possibly in my top four.
I think like, and I'm not, this is not me making excuses. This is not me like pontificating this is the most genius movie ever made, because it's not. You're right. It's absolutely batshit. But what I applaud, and you talk about the video store, like I remember seeing this in the video store, and as I've said, even though for some reason I get pegged, I think I get pegged as a big Halloween fan because of my passion for how much my disdain for Halloween Ends, like how much I hate that movie. That's not me being a passionate Halloween fan. That's just me being a passionate film fan, and that movie sucking like a Dyson. But I've said I'm not a huge Halloween fan. Like I like Halloween. It's a horror franchise, and I'm a horror guy. So of course I always pay attention to the big franchises. And I think, and weirdly, like when I think about the franchises I don't really like I'm not a big Child's Play guy. I'm not a Leprechaun guy. Like there are definitely franchises out there I don't care about. But Halloween fits into that mold of like the Freddy, Jason, like that's the big three. You have Freddy, Jason, and Michael Myers. So, but here's where I applaud this movie, and I think ultimately it's ahead of its time, is because it actually deals with like some really batshit ideas. It took big swings. The cover you mentioned at the video store, like, and I love the tagline even. The night no one comes home.
It's great. What a fucking line.
Taking it from the original Halloween, the night he comes home, and then the night no one comes. I love that.
By the way, no one's coming. There's no Michael Myers here. It makes total sense.
But I think this movie is ahead of its time in just the big swing that it took. Like, I'm not saying everything works, and I'm not saying it's not absolutely batshit cocaine-fueled insanity. What I'm saying is they took a shot on something weirdly intricate, weirdly different, and as you said, like with the robots, like this is ahead of its time, and like you said, like this could 100% be a Black Mirror episode. I totally agree. That is a techno horror, techno sci-fi show. This fits perfectly in there. And I think part of the reason why this movie has found appreciation years later is because while it is bad, I'm not going to deny it's batshit. It's absolutely batshit. 100% batshit. But we have embraced batshit in this day and age. Like, if I would have told you the plot of Longlegs 20, 30 years ago, you would have looked at me like I was on cocaine and about 16 other different drugs at the time. But in 2024, 2025, go on, we look at a movie like that or Talk to Me, other movies that like take these big swings that are so different. We're like, that's genius. Like, what a way to go. What a way to take a big swing and try something different. Bring Her Back, even though I don't like that movie. When Evil Lurks. You couldn't have done When Evil Lurks back in the 80s. Like, that movie is fucking insane.
It is insane.
I think Halloween 3 was just ahead of its time and took a big swing, and people, I mean, let's be honest, the biggest reason was it wasn't Michael Myers. But B was, it is a very weird batshit, like it's a movie based on witchcraft and Stonehenge, and they're going to wipe out a generation of children with masks, and what? Like what acid-fueled dream did this come from?
Couple of robots, Eiffel Tower, a dude. I mean, it's fucking crazy, bro.
And Tom Atkins is the pimp of all pimps. But
there's a Tom Atkins ass shot. I mean, we have it all in this movie.
Yeah, but I think this is a movie that in 2025, or maybe not even now, just maybe even just 10 years ago, people can embrace the insanity of it all and say this took a big swing and it worked. And I think you have to applaud them for that, because when you look at, like, I think one of the biggest complaints about a lot of the sequels that come out in the 80s, and we've talked about this because we've done franchise reviews. We've done almost all the Friday the 13th. We've done all the Nightmare on Elm Streets. We've unfortunately done all the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies as well. is that they run out of ideas and it becomes cookie cutter, right? Like, I think that to me was one of the biggest problems, like why I appreciate when they did Friday the 13th Part 7, that they introduced the idea of a telekinetic girl And
Yeah.
there's a lot, and that's a divisive film. You know that. A lot of people that hate that movie. They can
Yeah.
tell it
They think
connected,
it's insane.
but you love it. It's your favorite, and I grew to enjoy it more because I'm like, at least they did something different. Like it wasn't just the same old. Oh, Jason rises from the grave, kills a bunch of kids at Crystal Lake. They find some way to stop in the end. Cycle, repeat, do the same thing again. Even though I think Jason X is terrible, I'm not a Jason X fan. At least they tried something different. Like let's send him to space and freeze dry him and fucking whatever. I appreciate when you can reinvent the wheel. Like I think Wes Craven did that brilliantly with New Nightmare. Like that was his way of saying like Freddy's Dead was absolute dog shit. Let's just reinvent the franchise with this weird meta universe of Freddy's real, and we're gonna have actors playing themselves or versions of themselves. That was genius. That was a way to just reinvigorate that franchise without just completely retconning the history. Like he didn't want to just completely erase what had come before, but let's do something different. Halloween 3, its biggest mistake ultimately wasn't that it was a bad movie or it was badly directed or poorly acted. It just came down to it didn't have Michael Myers. But when you look at the history of the Halloween franchise, I like Halloween 4. I'm a Danielle Harris stan. I'll always be a Danielle Harris stan. And Halloween 5 is not great, but it's watchable. I rewatched, this is totally by accident, I just rewatched The Curse of Michael Myers the other night. It just happened to be on cable. Paul Rudd, first ever role. Way to go, Paul Rudd. Right. That movie is awful. That movie is so bad. And then I think I've said in the show before, I actually really, really enjoy Halloween H2O. I thought that was a great reinvention of the franchise. I actually now like it better than Halloween 2018.
Wow.
I love that. But then Halloween Resurrection came along and that was god awful. And then Halloween 2018 came out. We're like, what a great achievement. And then Halloween Kills came out. And Halloween Ends came out. This franchise cannot build any kind of consistent momentum.
No.
Like, I'll be honest, even though I know John Carpenter hates it, I think Halloween 2 is pretty bad too. Like the original Halloween 2, it's not a great movie. Like Jamie Lee Curtis wearing a really bad wig and Michael Myers just traipsing around the hospital. Like it's just literally a continuation of that same night and we get the big revelation that he's her brother. It's not a good movie. It's just not. So Halloween 3 kind of sticks out as a sore thumb because it's the one non-Michael Myers movie besides fucking Corey. But it took chances. It took a swing. And I'm telling you, Patrick, and I think you'll probably agree with me when I say this, I'll turn it to you. I'm not saying it would have been as big, because we got to be honest. Having the Halloween name and John Carpenter being involved in any way certainly gave this movie an audience. But if this movie had been made just like it is right now, and, got marketing behind it, an actual studio push, and it was just called Season of the Witch, I think this would have been a beloved favorite. Maybe it would have been hugely successful, but it would have been like a cult classic. Like people have been like, oh yeah, maybe it didn't make $100 million at the box office, but people were like, oh yeah, did you see Season of the Witch? And now years later, we'd be holding it in the same regard as we do some other of those movies of the 80s that were they weren't big hits, but people grew to love them or loved them at the time and they just didn't get an audience till later. I think this would be a very beloved horror film just if it's just not attached to the Halloween franchise.
All you do is take away the words Halloween 3, right? And you just go John Carpenter's Season of the Witch. That name alone carries a lot of weight in this business. And anything John Carpenter, In the Mouth of Madness. People talk about it all the time now. At the time, he couldn't sell it to anybody. He couldn't hand it out. He couldn't save his life with that movie. Now everybody loves it because John Carpenter is a special breed. He's got a special brain, and I don't know how much of Season of Which he came up with, but my guess is the grand pitch definitely came from John Carpenter. It's just that kind of movie. I mean, I even see little glimpses of They Live in here. There's just the tiniest inklings of what would come from John Carpenter later on in the 80s. The man is just special. He's just different. And that was the only thing holding this movie back, was the fact that it was attached to the Halloween franchise. He rolled the dice and he came up snake eyes. That's what happened. He just went, oh shit, they really didn't like that. I thought they were going to be cool with it. They're not. Oh, well, I'll go back to smoking weed and watching college basketball. That's what I'm going to do today. And that's John Carpenter's life. And he doesn't give two shits at the end of the day. He goes, I do what I do. If you don't like it, take a hike. That's John Carpenter. And so that was the only thing really getting in the way of this movie because it is interesting. It is different. It is weird. And it's done, I think it's done better than a lot of movies from its day. I know a lot of people love The Burning. I think The Burning's not a very good movie, personally. I don't think it's that great. There's a couple of good scenes in it. Otherwise, it's kind of a boring, big, dopey movie. Same with the original Friday the 13th, rather dated, low budget horror movie. These things just don't age well. Season of the Witch, while it is weird and strange, it works. It's a little slicker. It's probably Tommy Lee Wallace's best thing he's ever made, I think. If I'm looking at his directorial efforts, I don't think he directed a ton of stuff that was this good.
The original It miniseries, I still love that. I still love.
Okay, he did that. Okay, yeah. So that's good.
Yeah.
Damon, before we move on to categories, I do want to talk about the ending here because there's one other thing I need your help with as the Season of Witch expert on this show. When exactly, because near the end, they separate the two of them, right? The automatons come and they steal away Ellie. Um, at what point did they turn her into a robot?
Right away. Like after they kidnapped Ellie, we have to assume they killed her and they replaced her with an Ellie robot. So when Dr. Chalice goes in to rescue her, she is a robot, and they had already planted her under the assumption that either he would try to save her or he would save her. It's like a contingency plan. Like she was the backup. Like just in case everything
Okay.
goes haywire and he made it out, we still have a backup plan, which is we know he's going to try to rescue Ellie, and they made her into a robot. So my assumption is, I mean, they never show her body, but my assumption is she was dead right away, and they just used her as like a mold, so to speak, to create the Ellie robot. And then Ellie tries to kill him when they get in the car together.
And that proceeds to have one of the most hilarious fights in Tom Atkins history, where he's fighting with her arm. And I put in my notes, I go, now I know why in the Black Phone 2, he's just wrestling with air because Scott Derrickson and C. Robert Cargill clearly grew up on Season of the Witch, and they were like, hey, if Tom Atkins could just fight a hand, we can have a kid fighting invisible bodies. Like, no one's going to give a shit, right? We all love that. Some of the things in this movie don't age well, folks. That might be one of them. That might be one of my least favorite. That and like how they foil them with like the sprinkling of the chips on that part's kind of weird too. Yeah, I was just curious because I was like, when did they have time to do this to make a perfect mold of her? Clearly, they got some tech there at Silver Shamrock that is unbelievable. They must have 3D scanned her within a matter of moments and then created this perfect Ellie robot. I mean, it's very lifelike, Damon. I was very, very impressed.
And the other part of the ending and this is honestly one of the things that really pushes this movie over the edge from like, I enjoyed it to I love this movie. So Dr. Chalice escapes. He basically drops those, the weird microchips all over the thing, and they start exploding. And then the Stonehenge kind of turns on Connell Cochran. It's almost like he's also got to be sacrificed. Is the way I took that it like wiped him out too, because it's like
Bless your heart, Damon, for
if you're
taking
if
it.
you're gonna if you're gonna sacrifice, you got to sacrifice everything, and so it kind of takes him out as well. So all of Silver Shamrock gets melted down as well. And Dr. Chalice defeats the Ellie robot, and he gets back to that same gas station where Ellie's father was at, trying to warn them that like something terrible was happening at the Silver Shamrock factory. And he calls the television stations, and he's like, "You got to stop it! Stop it!" Very Dr. Chalice. And he doesn't get through to everybody. And at the end of the episode, the end of the movie, you see the dun, 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 happy, happy Halloween. It's starting. And we saw what happens when that happens with the one family when they get trapped in the room and the kid's face melts down from the mask. That's the end of the movie. It's left up to your imagination. And the idea is that it worked, meaning maybe there were like the one I think he gets through to one of the stations or two of the stations, but there's still more, and he doesn't get through to everybody. And obviously at the end you see the commercial comes on to the giveaway, the big moment. The idea is that like in a way Connell Cochran succeeded, because somewhere in this world like we have to imagine thousands of kids got wiped out by these masks. Now, we don't see that. They don't show the aftermath of that. There was never a sequel to give you, like, what was the aftermath of the whole Silver Shamrock disaster. None of that. But this ends in, like, a very, like, when you think about it, really fucking dour way. Like, they're like, we couldn't stop it. The kids are dead. Now, they don't show you that. But that, to me, like, that made the movie. because he's like trying to stop this child apocalypse from happening. The commercial still airs. So you have to assume a whole lot of children, maybe even his children, wearing these masks got wiped out. That's incredibly fucked up, but also like the ultimate non-80s have like this is the thing where at the end of the movie no one really wins. Like, yeah, they kind of stopped the alien, but like everybody died to do it. Like there's no, this is Reservoir Dogs. No one made it out alive. And I kind of appreciate the note of it, because like in another world there's like, oh, he gets through, he stops it from happening, and everyone's defeated. Nope. Donald Cochran, even though he's dead by the end of this movie, he got his wish. Kids are going to get wiped out by his weirdly witchcraft electronic infected masks.
Oh, I love a good dowry ending, and there's not enough of them out there. There really isn't, especially in the 80s. In the 80s, you had to have a Hollywood ending. That was just kind of the rule. I love that in the end, the idea is that a couple thousand kids for sure out there, they just now have crickets for brains. Like, I don't even know why that happens. I mean, I guess that's some part of the woo, some part of the Stonehenge curse, that actually just creates like bug heads or whatever. Like, your body turns into bugs and snakes. It's very like very old school pagans, ideas and shit like that. So I kind of like how that happens. And I just like the idea that they don't get to it in time. They try their damnedest. They did everything they were supposed to do the right way, and it still didn't work. That, on some deeper level, is what Dread is all about. You do the right thing and it still didn't work. And damn it, if Dr. Chalice didn't fight tooth and nail to the end to try and get it to happen. He probably should have gotten laid less, and I think that would have helped. But it's the 80s and you got to do it. What are you going to do?
But here's the thing. Here's the plot you missed in the bonus scenes that are on the actual Blu-ray DVD. Here's what you did.
Emphasis on bone.
And at the end of the movie, the kids get wiped out, and Dr. Chalice personally fucks so much he repopulates the world with all the kids. So it works out in the end.
he repopulated most of the earth, so it's all good. Yeah, it's a happy
there's
ending.
just 1,000,000 Dr. Chalice's kids running around out there. He's like, you know what? I gotta do my duty and please that booty, and I'm gonna go out there and just rock the world. And so there's like 1,000 Dr. Chalice's kids out there. He's like, I'm gonna do my part. So he spent the next like 10 years just boning every chick in California and just repopulating all the children. He's a humanitarian, Patrick. He really is.
As Tom Atkins is wont to do.
Yes, Tom Atkins, pimp, is what I'm saying. Should we get into some categories?
Oh, please.
Let's kick things off as we do each and every week on this show, and let's talk about best performance. And I'm going to go first here because this is one of my all-time favorite movies, and I think it's no surprise my best performance goes to the fuckmaster himself, Tom Atkins. I love Tom Atkins. I said before, he's one of my favorite, like, weird 80s horror actors. Like, a guy who, he did do other stuff. Like, he was in Hill Street Blues. He did, like, other shows and did other movies, but, like, I mean, come on. The Fog, Night of the Creeps, Maniac Cop, like, I mean, this Tom Atkins was just of that era, and he was always that guy to me. Like, oh, I know that guy, and he's awesome. And, getting to meet him years later, like an incredibly nice guy, and just an icon of that era. Like, he's just an icon of that era, and I just love him. Like, I know this sounds funny to say this. Tom Atkins plays this movie like he is the biggest ladies' man on earth. And I think weirdly, like when you think about like this everyman appeal who doesn't have like, this chiseled body, he actually might have been the inventor of the dad bod, if we're being honest, back in the 80s.
I think he is actually. It's a good point.
He just comes out and Ellie's just like, I got to get me some of that. And then the coroner's like, when you come back into town, I got to get me some. The only person who doesn't want to jump Tom Atkins' bones is his ex-wife, which is kind of a weird thing. Like, you think maybe she's angry because she's no longer getting the Tom D. Maybe that's what's happening over there. But like every other woman that meets him immediately just wants to like, be impregnated by Tom Atkins. So I appreciate that he played the role in the way that it was intended, which is he is just a smart doctor, a great investigator, and a huge pimp.
Tom Atkins, mayor of Pound Town.
Yes, 100%. The original. What about
Damon,
you,
my
Patrick? Who do you have for best performance?
my best performance actually goes to Dan O'Herlihy, who plays Connell Cochran, the kind of the head cultist. Although he's the head of what? There's no other people around. It's literally just him. I guess you could say maybe the townsfolk. Maybe he's doing it for those townsfolk. I don't know. They never really get into it, and I'm not going to pretend that they had that figured out. But I think Dan O'Herlihy. How do I say this gently, Damon? You could have handed out a lot of one testicle awards, and it actually feels like I slipped up by not adding a one testicle award to this movie in particular. But amongst all the testicles, Dan O'Herlihy was solid. He really was just this charming, nice guy. You never he even when he decided to unfold his evil plans, he did them with that sort of great 60s, 70s gravitas. Clearly Dan O'Herlihy spent a lot of time in the theater and in film and television back in the 60s and 70s, and it showed. He just had that different air about him. He spoke a different way. He had just kind of this businessman white collar style to him that really, really worked for the character and felt completely genuine. Like I never, and there was never like a weird turn where all of a sudden he was like a maniacal, king of the mole men or some weird shit. Like he just managed to ride that line. He's like, I play serious businessmen, and that's what I'm going to do here, damn it. And he did not falter once, Damon. He did not sneeze wrong. His handkerchief was folded just so. That's a lost art. And so I really had to give it up to Dan O'Herlihy this time.
He gets it. He kind of plays the smirking, mustache twisting bad guy, but he's the one who's going to outsmart you rather out muscle you.
Right.
He's going to outthink you, and yeah, he plays it great. And I remember I didn't see this movie until years after it came out. Like I said, even though I somehow get pegged as that big Halloween fan, I didn't really see this movie until years later. And when I first saw this movie, I was like, where do I know him from? I was like, oh, it's the old man from RoboCop, the leader of the
Yes.
RoboCop, the leader of was it OCC or
Yeah, I think it's OCC.
yeah, he's the leader of that. And I was like, oh, that's the guy who fires Dick Jones and he gets shot up by RoboCop. That's where I knew him from. I was like, hey, it's him. He's great. He's great in this movie. And he's got that kind of smirking, I can't quite trust him, yet he's kind of like my grandpa energy, if that makes sense. Like,
That's a very astute observation there.
He's going to hand you a Werther's original, and then inside the Werther's original is like poison. Like, that's kind of what his character gives off here. I love him. I think he's great in this movie. And I like, every time I watch this, he's just like, he always stands out. He's got it's almost like he's in a different movie.
That's really how I feel about him.
But it does work. It somehow works. So yeah, old Dan O'Herlihy really pulls this one off. Next category, Patrick, let's talk about our MVP and our most valuable person in this movie. As we always say, it's the Ken Frey Banana Hammock MVP Award, named after a great character actor Ken Frey from the movie From Beyond, when he jumped down a flight of stairs and into a basement to kill a creature wearing nothing more than a thong bikini. If that's not an MVP performance, I don't know what is. So when it comes to Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, who is your MVP?
Damon, my MVP has to go to writer-director Tommy Lee Wallace. I'm sure when this script landed on his desk sometime in 1981, when I was just a wee lad, the coke was flowing, the LSD was, under the tongue, and they were just like, I don't know, man, we have to make it. We got greenlit, so get it going. To navigate such a batshit idea and execute it to a level of, honestly, of satisfaction. I know we're having a lot of fun with Season of the Witch tonight, but it's genuinely like a watchable, interesting, crazy movie. It's still a crazy movie, but to get it done and to make it make sense, I'm very impressed with Tommy Lee Wallace because I don't think you could have given me this script and I would have churned out that. As someone who fancies themselves a writer and a director, I don't know that I would have been able to process that out to what we got on screen. And I don't know how much of a hand John Carpenter really had in the actual filmmaking process of it. It doesn't really feel like a John Carpenter movie, except for a couple of little elements here and there. It really feels like like I'm just very proud of Tommy Lee Wallace for officially getting this thing across the finish line because it's fucking crazy.
When you were getting ready for this, did you do any research on Tommy Lee Wallace, like his relationship with John Carpenter? Because
I didn't get a ton, no.
so he actually went to college with John Carpenter and Dan O'Bannon and
Right.
actually worked on Dark Star with them. Like he was younger than them, so he got there later, but he had befriended John Carpenter and Dan O'Bannon when they made Dark Star. And he continued to work with, like, he is the guy who found the William Shatner mask that got transformed into the Michael Myers mask. That's Tommy Lee Wallace. He was trying to find a mask that just like had no like discernible features, and when he went to the store, he couldn't find anything except those William Shatner masks, which they eventually crafted and changed and redid into Michael Myers, and that's Tommy Lee Wallace. He was a production assistant. He actually starred as Michael Myers in some scenes in the original Halloween. Like whenever you see Michael Myers' hand, that is Tommy Lee Wallace. So he's had a deep connection to John Carpenter for years. And when this movie came up, and the original director was Joe Dante, who everyone knows from Gremlins and other movies, he dropped off this to go direct a segment for Twilight, the movie for Steven Spielberg. Now, I get it. You want to work with Steven Spielberg. I understand
Sure.
that. But he was the original director, and Joe Dante's a great director too, by the way. He dropped off, and so they're like, well, we need somebody. And John Carpenter's like, well, Tommy, here's your chance, buddy. And he directed his first feature film, which was Halloween 3. So he has deep, deep ties to John Carpenter. And obviously, I think they're sharing the same Coke bowl back in the early 80s. So
Bowl.
he's great. He's great. It's not a line. It's a full bowl of Coke.
Oh yeah, there's definitely a pile of some.
It's like we came to know 8 balls in the 90s. This is beyond 8 ball, all right? This is like a Scarface level amount of cocaine. So, yeah. And to that point, my MVP weirdly goes to John Carpenter, not because, like, yes, he did rework the original script, and then Tommy Lee Wallace kind of put the finishing touches, and he got the only credit because Nigel Neal's like, fuck this movie. But John Carpenter did rework the script. John Carpenter did do the score for this movie, which is great. I love this score. I think John
Yeah, it's a
Carpenter
good score.
his score, his composing is amazing. I love John Carpenter's scores. But my real MVP for John Carpenter comes down to what I mentioned earlier. Yes, he was late arriving to the idea, but his idea to turn this into an anthology series was pretty genius. It's just one film too late. Because
Yes.
if you do this for, I'm not going to go back and say it again, but if you go back and do this for Halloween 2 and you just go from Michael Myers to Season of the Witch to whatever the third one would have been, it's an anthology. It's Twilight Zone. It's The Outer Limits. It's Creep Show, except in a bigger form with one movie versus 3 vignettes in a movie. He had the right idea, and I appreciate that because his artistry said I don't want to make another Michael Myers movie. I wanted one. You already fucking around, maybe make 2. I give him credit. Now, did it work at the time? No. People hated it, and they had to go back to Michael Myers for Halloween 4. But John Carpenter stuck to his guns as best he could and said, I don't want to do another one, so here's what we're going to do instead. And I appreciate the artistry of that. And in an age where everyone was just churning out sequels like they were fucking copies in a copy machine. I mean, my God, look at the release dates of Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street. They came out every fucking year. Like, you can't even imagine a sequel coming out a year later now. Like, it does happen occasionally, but like 2 years is almost a minimum now to like go between films. Back then, they're like, hey, we're releasing Halloween in October. The next one will come out the following October. Like, they're just like, we're just going. I think Saw was the last franchise that really did that. Like, they're like, every October, we're dropping a Saw movie.
Yeah.
But I appreciated John Carpenter being like, I don't want to do more Michael Myers. We're going to do this instead, and it's going to change the direction of the franchise. Totally didn't work, but at least he had the idea.
I think John Carpenter's the only person with the balls to say that. Like nobody, I don't think anybody else does it. Not at that time. Not at that point in time. Do you go, yeah, we'll switch completely out from what we've been doing and make this weird sci-fi cult thing. I mean, it's as out there as it gets. And he's just like, yeah, I'll do it. That's what we're going to do instead. Cause I fucking hate Michael Myers. It's so exclusively John Carpenter That's the only way this actually happens. I think people kind of gloss over that. It's like John Carpenter is a proper agent provocateur. Like that the guy just insists on being a contrarian. That's just his MO. That's what he does. I don't think anybody else at the time would have had the balls to try this.
Yeah, everyone else is going left. He's like, no, we're going right. Fuck that.
Right, shit, we're going fucking down, we're going diagonal, we're going I mean
And
he didn't believe in direction.
and not to turn this into like a pontification of how great John Carpenter is, but when you think about the movies he made in that era, like The Thing, it didn't find its audience when it came out. It bombed hard.
Right.
But you talk to any horror fan of this age or any horror fan that grew up in that era, what is one of the three greatest horror films ever made? The Thing. Everyone says that. Like we all
Yeah,
agree that
things always on that top 3 list.
They Live was so far ahead of its time in terms of like the way we just fall into our automation and are just falling into like obeying what everyone tells us to do and following what everyone else is doing, the trends. Uh, Prince of Darkness, which is probably my favorite John Carpenter movie. I loved that movie. I feel like it took years to find an audience for that movie because it did not do well. John, Escape from New York. It was a little bigger, but it wasn't like this huge smash hit at the time. And now it's like a beloved cult classic. John Carpenter just had a way at that era of making movies that, for whatever reason, they were ahead of their time. And I stand by the fact that I truly believe Halloween 3 was ahead of its time.
100%.
Next category, Patrick, let's talk about best scare. This movie does get gnarly and does actually offer some scares at different points in the movie. So, what was your best scare in Halloween 3?
My best scare actually goes to grandma knitting. And I know what you're thinking, like maybe like a kind of a childish jump scare. And this movie is full of the more classic kind of standard jump scares that wouldn't get a more modern audience. What I loved about the grandma knitting scene where he opens the door and she's just right in front of him, it's the uncanny valley thing, which I think still works on modern audiences, where you're just like, that doesn't quite look human. It looks like a human, but it's not for some reason. That's what gets me about that scene. That's what I love about that scene, the uneasiness of just going, oh, that's weird.
Yeah, I love that scene. And it's so like, it's when you think about it, it's so weird and out of place. Like, there's just this random grandmother knitting in a chair somewhere in this weird factory. Like, what? That once again, I feel like was like late at night and someone going, let's put a grandma in there with her knitting and she's going to be a robot. All right, sounds great.
This really happened at my family back in 1928.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great scene. It works really well. My best scare isn't more of a traditional scare of like a jump scare or like something like that. Mine is just because of how gnarly it is. And it's the scene where the robot comes in and kills Ellie's dad.
Yeah.
Ellie's dad is holding on to this jack-o'-lantern mask and he's trying to tell them the world's coming to an end and Connell Cochran's going to kill everybody, but he's in shock and everything. And this robot dude just shows up and takes his fingers, literally jams it into his eyes and snaps his fucking nose and like brain in that moment and kills him. They do a close up on it and it is gnarly. And when you hear it snap and pull and he pulls it out and like you see like the rubbery skin and like the bone, it's pretty gnarly. And I was like, God, that's like, because like in that era, yes, you would get some gnarly kills of like arrows going through Kevin Bacon's neck and things like that.
Yeah.
But if you remember the original Halloween, like it's not a gory film at all. Like it's not even remotely gory. And movies of that era were still like, no, they weren't playing it safe, but they didn't, I mean, just because of practical effects and things like that, they didn't get too crazy. I was just like, God, that's a really gnarly way to kill a guy. And yeah, kudos.
Yeah, no, I really did dig that.
Next category, Patrick, let's talk about best kill / best gore. We're going to kind of combine these categories. So, Patrick, for you, what is the best kill / best gore in Halloween 3?
Damon, this was a scene where, if you've taken too many breaks between watching Season of the Witch, you might come across the scene and go, what the fuck is about to happen here exactly? So there's this hobo that's not scared of Cochran. That's his whole thing. Like he lives in the town. He doesn't care about Cochran. Don't you worry about him. I got plans. And you almost feel like, oh, maybe he'll help out because he's not under the spell of Cochran like the rest of the town seems to be under his thumb. And so he goes off to his little hobo shack and he's doing his thing. And two of these suited automatons come by. Damon, they get him on his knees. One gets in front of him. One gets behind him. It looks like we're about to bow chicka wow wow. Like it's about to be a full blown porno scene, is what it looks like. And then they drive their fingers through his eyeballs and twist and rip his head off, and blood goes spraying everywhere. And I was like, that was the weirdest erotic setup to a kill I've seen in maybe any movie ever.
The only clue that it wasn't going to turn weirdly erotic was Tom Atkins wasn't involved. So I think you were okay.
That's true. That's true. Without Tom Atkins's bare ass in the scene, I wasn't. I didn't think anything sexual was going to go down.
Literally ripping a dude's head off is a fucking gnarly way to kill a guy. Like that is pretty hardcore. So, and to that point, my best gore is actually, and when looking back, watching it now, because I watched it in 4K the other night, I was like, this kind of still holds up. Is when Mrs. Gutman playing with the microchip and it zaps her in the face and just fucking wipes out her face. Now, the bugs crawling out, that's actually going to come up in another category later, so I don't want to get too deep into that. But that scene where she's like sitting there holding her face is all fucked up and gnarled and stuff, it's like, it's a really effective scene. And yes, the blue light looks a little cheesy now because that was the 80s, but like the aftermath is fucking, it's pretty gruesome.
It's another one of those weird uncanny valley moments where it's like, yeah, this is a torn apart face and it looks sort of human, and that's what's disturbing about it. It's very gnarly for the time. I mean, I have to imagine, again, one of those people who sat in the theater and was waiting for Michael Myers was like, what the fuck is happening in this movie? And then her face gets blown off by a microchip, and you're like, I really don't know what I'm in now. Like, what on earth have I sat down to watch?
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Next category, Patrick, would you like to intro this category? Because I did enjoy this one.
It just struck me funny, Damon, because this is a very kooky movie, as we've been explaining all night. And so I was like, you know what? This time around, we're going to do like I do with the boys when they come home from school. We're going to do high, low Buffalo. We're going to talk about a high from the movie, a high point, a low point, and a fucking whacked out point, and that'll be the Buffalo. Okay. So, Damon, do you have high, low, and Buffalo?
So I don't want to spoil it, but we have the same high. So can we just talk about that? I was
talk
gonna
about the
slightly,
high.
I was going to slightly change it, but same. We got basically the same idea, which is the stakes in this movie. And I was gonna say like the children, but you just basically said like it's the fucking like the wild like the actual plot of this movie, disturbing stakes. We're wiping out thousands of children.
Yeah.
This isn't like a plot to kill adults. Like they're literally putting masks on children and just waiting for their fucking faces to melt. Like that is like even at the time I don't even know that people wrap their heads around how crazy that is. And I know not saying killing children should be like a modicum of horror or anything, but like even now that sounds wild. Like the premise of Weapons came out and they're like 17 children or 27, whatever the number was, children go missing, that immediately raised your radar because like, oh man, they're messing with children. Like even now it's still like, ooh, raise your radar. Do you realize that they were going to wipe out probably millions of kids, and at worst they wiped out thousands of kids, even though Dr. Chalice did his best to save their life? Holy shit.
It's an insane ticking clock. When you learn what the plot is, when you learn what the plan is, everything from that point on, it's like, how do we stop this? How do we stop thousands of children on Halloween night from their heads melting, from their heads literally melting and bugs crawling out of them? How do we stop that? It's crazy. And it's why the movie ultimately works, because it has an engine. That's the engine of the movie. If he was just wandering around trying to make sure that this dangerous exploding mask stopped, but we didn't know why or care why, or it could have been on Joe Blow. No, the plot is we are going to kill millions of kids. Millions. That's the plan. How are you going to try and stop us, Dr. Atkins? Oh, I don't know. Like, like I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to go bone this chick first, but then I'll figure it out. Like that is legitimately the stakes of this movie. And without stakes that high, this movie doesn't work.
And let's not forget, they showed it. Little Buddy gets his fucking face melted off with a mask. They had that scene where he's holding on and his fucking face melts off. They showed a kid getting murdered by a mask. And like now we're like, oh, it's a cool scene. They literally show you what's going to happen to thousands of children around the world in that one scene. Come on now.
It's gnarly, Damon. It really is.
So next up is the low. Do you want me to go first? Do you want to go first on this one?
Please, Damon, go.
So it's a weird low because I do love this movie, but my low is it's the subplot with the coroner. And it's
Mm.
not because it doesn't work. As I said earlier, I truly believe the whole idea of the robot was laid because of the underlying subplot with the coroner. I liked all that where she's like, there's no body, there's no bones. What the fuck is going on? That I loved all that. It's the conclusion that they just show up and kill her. So it ultimately doesn't pay off because Dr. Chalice finds out the robots when he gets into the fight with the robot at the factory. He pulls his hand out and it's covered in that yellow goo, and he realizes that he pulls out wires and he realizes they're robots. That subplot never pays off. If it had paid off to where if she calls him and says, "Hey, when you get back to town, I want to fuck," but then after that, I want to tell you that you're not dealing with humans. This is some sort of weird robot shit. And he's like,
Yeah.
what? And then she gets killed before she can tell him the full story. That makes sense. But ultimately, it doesn't pay off because they just kill her before she ever gets the chance to tell him. So I like the subplot, but it just never pays off.
I have to wonder if there was a moment where it pays off and she tells him and they're like, it just is too many questions. Just let him figure it out.
Yeah.
But I have a feeling that might have been what happened. They were like, it creates a whole new set of problems for him where he has to worry about robots. Why don't we just make him discover that there's some robots and then we'll play with that later. I think if you dig too far, you're going to come up with the shit pipe. You don't want to dig up the sewer is what I'm saying. So do be careful in those instances. I don't hate that it went nowhere because maybe it would have made a mess of the movie, but I can see I see what you mean there. It's just sort of like, oh, we built up this moment and then it just stops before we get anything.
Yeah, like I said, I actually really like the subplot. I actually like how that's laid in with the robots. It just doesn't get to pay off because she just dies. And I'm just like, I understand it is cool when he beats up the robot and pulls out and has his hand covered in goo, and that's how he finds out. That's fine, but it felt like you're leading towards something, and then it just doesn't go anywhere. And I'm like, that's kind of disappointing because I think that would have been a cool moment to, even if it's her saying they're not human, and then she just gets killed, and he's like, what? And then he finds out what she meant. You know what I mean? Like
whatever do you mean? And I just got your nudes in the mail. Nice.
Yeah, this is not texting days. You had to wait for the mail to get news back then. So yeah. What about you, Patrick? What is your low? I know what your low is, and I totally disagree with you.
I know you do. Okay, so Damon kind of blew the wad, pun intended, earlier. Damon loves the fact that Tom Atkins is a full-blown ladies' man in this movie. I found it oddly distracting. There are some weird moments, Damon. There's some lines that made me genuinely uncomfortable, and I don't even want to repeat them. They're just weird. I'm like, why did you even put that line in here?
Are you talking about when he's boning Ellen? He's like, how old are you?
Oh God. I was like, why do we have this line? Just take this line out. And then she goes, I'm older than I look. And I'm like, that's not even a good answer. That's not a good answer. I don't like that. Very uncomfortable. That stuff made me very uncomfortable, Damon. So that's my official low, but I will give you this because I know you didn't agree with that. I will give you the other low I found in this movie. The actual way that they foil the plan is so strange. They steal a bunch of the chips, which are just in a loose in a box, and they like run up onto the catwalk. And right as like the event is happening, they like just spray them down on everybody, and it starts to make everything catch fire, and then the Stonehenge itself literally explodes. And I was like, what in the fucking Austin Powers bullshit is this? Like it's the oddest thing in the entire movie. So I'm going to give you that as an official low. I know you will not accept the Tom Atkins ladies man low, so I'm going to add that in as a bonus low.
I think Tom Atkins fucks should be the subtitle of this movie. But yeah, and I will say, by the way, and this is not me nitpicking because I love this movie, but this is me asking you because I know you can't explain this, but I'm going to ask it anyways. So the idea is these masks are going to kill the children. When we watch little Buddy die, it's just like the mask kind of melts and the witchcraft takes over and it kind of melts in his face.
Yeah.
We find out when Mrs. Gutman kind of fucks around with the microchip, it explodes and they say it was a misfire. So which is it? Is it the witchcraft in the mask, or is it the fucking weird microchip that's going to wipe them out? Because it's, I mean, are we saying they had a backup plan? Like, hey, witchcraft doesn't kick in, let's wipe them out with the microchip instead.
Maybe that was it. It was like, oh, that's the backup. If the witchcraft doesn't work, we just explode their heads. I guess.
I'm just throwing it
Don't
out
dig
there.
too far, Damon. That's all I'm saying. The septic tank's down there. Don't you go digging, boy.
You won't find a septic tank. You'll find leftover remnants of Coke. So the next category, the next one is Buffalo, which is a weird batshit of it all. And I'm just gonna say, I was gonna go with Stonehenge because of all the fucking weird oddities you got to put in this movie.
That's
Stonehenge,
weird.
but the one that still sticks with me, and I'll never understand it. And I know you brought it up that it's like a tenet of weird witchcraft thing, but like Marge gets blasted in the face with a ray from a microchip, and then bugs just crawl
Why
out
the
of her mouth.
bugs?
And little Buddy gets wiped out, his face gets melted, and there's snakes and shit, and then the snake kills his father, which is a whole other thing. But it's just like, why? Where the fuck did these bugs come from? How did that end up being part of this? That's one part of the movie I to this day still don't understand.
I think it's truly the witchcraft. I really do. I think it's just the idea is the witchcraft like turns your body into bugs and snakes and creepy crawly vermin. Like I really think that's ultimately what that is. Well, that's how they actually show the witchcraft. You think about it. Think about any other way they could have showed the witchcraft. They didn't. There's no other representation of witchcraft in this movie at all, other than you turn into bugs and fucking centipedes and shit.
Sure. Okay. I was just like, it's just the weirdest thing. Like when she gets, it's not even the Buddy one. It's the Mrs. Gutman when she gets blasted in the face by the microchip and then bugs just start crawling out of her mouth. I understand it's creepy and like, it's kind of, gory, I guess, whatever you want to say. I think that's why they did it. I really don't think it had a more intricate plot than that. But I was just like, why are there bugs crawling out of her face? It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, but whatever.
Because witchcraft. That's it.
Yeah. What about you? What is your Buffalo?
I mean, I think my Buffalo pales in comparison to that, honestly, because it was just like robots. Why robots? Like we got robots, we got witchcraft, we got microchips that explode, we got Stonehenge. I mean, the whole goddamn movie's a Buffalo, Damon. If we're being honest, we've got Tom Atkins' ass crack. I mean, you've got it all in this movie if you need it.
Yeah, it's all there. And by the way, I do want to give credit where we have literally not mentioned this at all, but like Stacey Nelkin as she's not a final girl because she doesn't make it, but like she's fun in this movie. And I remember I read Roger Ebert. He gave this movie 1.5 stars, and his one highlight was Stacey Nelkin. He gave her credit, and and not good. I'm not trying to turn this into like a weird perverted podcast, but like she made the point of being like the attractive girl in this movie. She was an attractive woman in this movie. Do not enjoy that Tom Atkins bones her and then's like, how old are you? That's just
oh god, very uncomfortable.
Yeah,
very.
She was. We've not talked about her, but I think she did a great job. I really like Stacey Nelkin in this movie. I just want to give her props because she was really good in this movie.
She's a legend. We love you, Stacey.
Next category, Patrick. Was this right for the Halloween franchise? And we kind of already talked about this, so we don't need to rehash the idea that like this was the third film and they wanted to turn it into an anthology. It backfired spectacularly, and they said, "Never mind, we're going back to Michael Myers." But in the long run, like, was this the right move for the Halloween franchise?
At the end of the day, yes. It's this talking point in the whole franchise, which without this, all we'd be doing is arguing about Rob Zombie's remakes. That's it. Like, we wouldn't have anything else to talk about in the Halloween series. This makes it interesting. Like, I know there are diehard fans of Curse of Michael Myers, of H2O, of Resurrection. I know there are tons of people that defend those movies to the ends of the earth. It's a funky franchise. It just is. Like the Michael Myers saga itself. And by the way, with David Gordon Green's Halloween being canon, it's even weirder. It's even fucking weirder. Like anything including Michael Myers in it that's not a Rob Zombie movie is strange to me. I go, it's just nothing adds up here. So having Season of the Witch as part of it is sort of this fun little aside that I feel like is almost a unifier because there's so many different factions. Like I'm the Rob Zombie faction. And boy, am I hated. People don't like that. People don't like that I'm Rob Zombie Halloween's till the day I die. They think they're like, you don't even like this franchise. Clearly, you hate it because you like those movies. And then there's the diehard John Carpenter people. There's the diehard, Resurrection H2O people, Curse Michael Myers people. But I feel like when everybody goes, yeah, but Season of the Witch, everybody goes, yeah, I love that one. It's fucking great, man. Like it is the one shining star. And I think the whole franchise that everybody down the line goes, we love it. Aside from the original, but of course, I'm not a Michael Myers guy, so I don't really care about the original. Aside from the original, I think Season of the Witch is the only one now that, in hindsight, everybody looks back on and goes, we're glad we have it.
You're 100% correct, and I'm just going to echo and say you're absolutely right on that. And I'll just add what I said earlier. This was just one movie too late. If
Yep.
this happened at Halloween 2, I don't think people have the same reaction. I'm not saying people would have loved it, but I'm saying like, oh, this wasn't a
Yeah, you
series.
set a
It wasn't
precedent.
franchise. You set a precedent. So the third one is whatever else it could have been. That's all it was. It was one film too late. You gave them Halloween 2. You shouldn't have done that, and you could have just done this one instead. And then you really could have had your anthology. And not to say no one would have ever revisited Michael Myers because 1978's Halloween is an iconic franchise, but everything just gets messy after that because then you have the people who are like, oh, I hate the idea that Michael Myers is her brother. I know that's something Quentin Tarantino has said. Like he liked the randomness of it. And I get that. That is a cool part of the first one. But then you get to like even Halloween 2018, one of my biggest complaints about that movie is like, so Michael Myers isn't related to Laurie, and we find out he doesn't give a fuck about Laurie. Like the doctor literally he drops Michael Myers off at her fucking house to like, hey, here she is, and like it's not like Michael Myers is like hold on to this 40-year grudge over Laurie's throat. He just gets pointed in her direction because he's just a killer. He's like Great White Shark. He just kills whatever's in front of him. And that weird Dr. Sartan's like, let's see what happens when I put him directly in front of this woman. There's no purpose. Like that's what I've grown to dislike about that movie because you're not even telling me like Michael isn't holding on to some 40-year-old vengeance. It's just this doctor's like, hey, here she is, go get her. Let's see what happens. Not because at least the brother angle, for all the critics of that saying, oh, it's kind of dumb or why did you introduce that? At least it gives him a motivation to continue to go after Laurie. Otherwise, you're just like, sure, Laurie, let's just kill her. Sure, why not? Like, there's just no. So yeah, like, so this movie had purpose. This movie had genuine originality. It was just early, or it was late, I should say. It was late. If they would have did this for 2 instead of 3, I'm not saying it would have reset the franchise. I just think it would have had a different connotation than it does now.
I think so. And I think you could have very cleanly brought Michael Myers in after the fact. Like, be like, okay, yeah, we did Season of the Witch. We did this other one. We did this other one. Let's bring Michael Myers back. And then it would have been a fun little triumphant return. But that's looking on the past with golden glasses, Damon. It is written, but I think at the end of the day, people love this movie.
Yeah. And last category, as always, Patrick, is it scary? So at the end of the day, Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, Tom Atkins' dick, and piles of cocaine. Is it scary?
When you put it that way, terrifying. Yes. No, I think that this is a classic horror movie. Really, classic early 80s stuff. So yeah, is it scaring anybody? No. There's a couple of uncanny valley things in here that are disturbing. I think the plot is rather devious. The fact that we're going to try and kill millions of children on Halloween night is pretty wild. So it's not going to scare you. It's not going to shiver your timbers, but it is that kind of movie where you're like, it's Halloween season. I want to sit down tonight and I want to watch a classic horror movie. You put on Season of the Witch. You do. It's going to be one of the ones you put on. That alone gives it that scary category that we're all looking for.
I know I've said this on the podcast before, and I'll say it again now, and people get pissed off when I say this, but I'm going to say it again. The original Halloween isn't scary. It's an iconic movie. It's an iconic movie, and at the time, it was original and people loved it and it was scary. But for 1978 to now 2025, Halloween is not scary. Not even jump scares. Like, it's just not a scary movie. And so
My,
I
my
would say,
kids were bored and they were very young when they watched it.
and I would say, like, Halloween 3 in the traditional sense is not a scary movie, but it is a scary movie plot wise because it's a fucking, like, it's a pretty dark plot when you really think about it. We talked about, like, the bat shit of it all is, like, literally killing thousands of children when you watch little buddy getting melted down by his mask. It's fucked up. So that makes it scary. Like, you're like, oh my God, like, this is really wildly messed up. And that in and of itself makes it scary. So I would say it is in that. It's not in the traditional sense of like, oh my God,
No.
I got to sleep with the lights on kind of scary. It's more of like, this is a fucked up movie when you really think about it.
It is fucked up. Many, many more ways than one.
All right, Patrick, that is our Halloween 3 Season of the Witch episode. We had to get this one in. It is Halloween season, and we haven't done this one, and you know what a fan I am of this one. I know you're a fan as well. So Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, I think it is streaming a lot of places right now. I think it's on Peacock and a couple other places, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
I have the 4K, so that's how I watched it, but I think it's available streaming a couple different places. So Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, go watch Tom Atkins get his bone on. Amongst other things in this movie. As always, want to say a big thank you to everyone that tunes in the show. Make sure you check us on all your favorite podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and of course, over at our website, rewindofthelivingdead.com, where you can find our podcast, news, reviews that aren't on the podcast, trailers, all kinds of good shit. Check out rewindofthelivingdead.com and also check out our YouTube channel. Once again, just search Rewind of the Living Dead. You'll find us over there. Like, subscribe. Even if you don't watch us over there, it really does help us with the algorithm and search results and all that kind of good stuff. So go over there and check that out. And also, patreon.com/Rewind of the Living Dead. If you want early access to this episode and every other episode, patreon.com/Rewind of the Living Dead. Plus, bonus episodes, things you will not get anywhere else. We did an entire recap of the first season of Alien Earth. We've done non-horror movie reviews for Superman, The Smashing Machine, and more of those coming as the rest of the year goes on. So patreon.com/Rewind of the Living Dead. Not going to cost you much. You're supporting your boys, but you're also getting access to some cool shit. So check that out as well. Questions, comments, movies you'd like us to review. How much coke were you on when you watched Halloween 3? Hit us up on email anytime. rotlivingdead@gmail.com. That's rotlivingdead@gmail.com. Or find us on social media. Once again, just search Rewind of the Living Dead on Twitter/X, Facebook, and Instagram. We love to hear from you guys. We love your comments, so we appreciate that. And you can also find us on our own personal social media channels. I am at Damon Martin, and you are?
At Director Patrick.
And as always, want to say a big thank you to everyone that tunes in this show. We'll be back next week with another edition of Rewind of the Living Dead, Tom Atkins edition. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you then.
Peace.